Oh, the unanimous decision of the week goes to Johnny Depp. Now, was that fun for everybody? I mean, I thought it was the best thing on TV. I will admit TV's been a little bit down. It wasn't something I would think that I would normally enjoy, but boy, there was a back and forth there, and that turned into something, right? You got these two actors, you've got a performance going on, not to mention you've got the drama and the lawsuits and everything else. It was interesting, though. My prediction as the jury was deliberating, right? They told us, they said the jury has reached a result, but then there was an hour. We'll read it to you, the audience. We all had to wait an hour. So everybody's throwing their predictions out. And my prediction was it's going to go to Johnny Depp. But my prediction was not based in an understanding of the law. There is nothing, and I think most of you saw it the same way. Or I think most of you are happy with the outcome. I say that just social media tends to lean towards him. Media outlets that covered it tend to lean towards him. Joe Rogan went as far as to play a clip of Amber Heard and declare you can tell she is lying. No, you can't. Of course you can't. But when I share with you that I do think that people were happy with this outcome as a broad stroke, it's why I predicted that Johnny was going to win. Because don't forget, if you're in front of a judge who understands the law, there was not one single thing, and you could go through it line by line, there was not one single thing that Heard did that was not protected by the Constitution. There was no crime there. Period. Broad stroke, but you will not find it. You got lawyers in the family, go ask them. They will all agree with what I just said, but that wasn't who was testing this. A jury was testing this. So you can get the verdict and you can get favor with a jury for reasons that are totally outside of the law. Now, the jury is going to be instructed. This is not a good game to play. But I don't believe that Johnny Depp was ever trying to get $50 million from her in the first place. And I don't think you guys believe that either. I don't know that Johnny Depp was expecting to win a judgment at any point when this whole thing went on, just because it was so hard to prove. But he was expecting to come on and tell his side and make sure that he gained favor with the public, of which he succeeded in spite of the result. Now, the only reason I share this with you, when I tell you that the jury, if they like you, they can see it for you. If they don't like her, they can see it for you. If it's anywhere in between, you're not in front of a judge who understands the law. You're in front of a jury. It's very different. So what you're trying to do and the human elements that can come into, they're very different. And it went in the side of Johnny Depp. Now, I read a book, it was a number of years ago. This was a public thing. I believe they even made a short movie about it. It captivated the news, but there was also a book, I read the book. It had to do with Scott Peterson. Does that name ring a bell to you guys? Scott Peterson, right this very second, is in solitary confinement, has not interacted with a human being in around 10 years off the top of my head, and is on death row in California. He's on death row in California, which is enough time goes by, they will execute him. They will execute him for the murder of his pregnant wife, Lacey. That's a problem by the law because they can't prove Lacey was killed. If you don't have a body in a murder trial, you have a problem as the prosecution. There was a period of time where there was no prosecution if you didn't have the body. So you see the problem with that. And so they found a way to work through that. Like over time with science and forensics and enough speculative, enough reasonable belief, they did start trying people, they did start convicting people, absent of a body. This was very different. I don't want any of you to hear me and think that I'm pleading a case for Scott Peterson. I'm not in the least. I am speaking to the legality of having somebody on death row because in this particular case, they did have the body. It wasn't a case of they couldn't find the body, but they were just sure this was more than a disappearance. They had the body. Effectively proved that she was dead. They could not prove she was murdered. There wasn't a toxicology, by example. There wasn't blunt force trauma to the skull, as many of you guys will see if you ever watch a simple episode of Forensic Files. There was not stab wounds. There was not bullet wounds. They could not prove that she had been murdered. They had the body. But a guy is sitting on death row for murdering her. It's a tremendous problem in the legal system, and nobody stepped forward for him. Nobody that could step forward, that could review that could test the constitutionality. Nobody has done. This story's not going to change. Nobody's going to. Just sharing for you, the law as you think that you know it gets very different when you go in front of a jury. Our guy, Cain. That's an interesting one for me. Garagos, his attorney, is a very well-known attorney. How good is he? I don't know. He's well-known, and those don't always go hand in hand. It is very clear that what Cain experienced was temporary insanity, which is an extremely effective defense. That has not even been brought up. So is there a nuance that I don't know about? My understanding to insanity was that that is a federal law, but this isn't being tested by the feds. This is being tried by the state. Is there a nuance within the state of California where that doesn't apply? Because nobody's even brought it up, and it's extremely clear that that's exactly what happened. Not to mention, it'd be very easy to convince 12 people not smart enough to get out of jury duty that he was temporarily insane. But absent of that, you got a jam, right? You got a big jam. I had a hope. It was my own hope. It was my own fantasy. As somebody that wants to see this get rewound, that understands the mindset and the brief and does not at all believe that Cain is a threat to society and therefore doesn't need to be taken out of society. All right. It's a lot to disclose, right? Taking up for a guy accused of some pretty bad stuff here, but that is how I feel. I feel he's a threat. I had a hope that somebody would get to the guy that was shot. You got 3 people in a car. Cain's firing bullets. One guy gets hit. I believe that it was in the leg. I'm going to tell the story as though it was in the leg. Ended up not being a very serious injury. That would suck. That would be terrible. But I had my own hope that somebody would get to him, because don't forget, that guy is the father of the accused. The one, Mr. Touchy-Feely, is the son of the guy that was hit. And I had my own fantasy that you would sit down, you would explain a strategy to this guy. That guy would then come into court in Cain's defense. He would come in and say, please show this man grace. I am a father. I could only imagine. We would do anything to protect our children. Now, he's not doing that to serve Cain. The pool that this jury that will oversee Cain will be elected from the same pool in the same community that will oversee his son. And from a strategic standpoint, if somebody could have sat with him, I feel they could have explained to him, if you come in here and you beg grace to Cain for this action, you begin to lay the foundation for a misunderstanding that then begins to serve your own son. And I do think if somebody could have got to him and they could have leveled, I think that that's possible. It's unlikely. People generally don't see it that way. Everybody wants to be judged on their intent, but you judge everybody else on their actions. It's one of those things. You get hit in the leg, it's a bullet, it's a terrifying situation. You're probably pissed. Yeah, it would have taken a lot to convince you, but hold on. You are a father, and you understand what was said, and this is being followed up, and you would trust your own kid, and there would be a rage that you would experience. Can we at least get that far? Like, there was a way to start to level with the guy who's still not going to want to do it. But then you could bring in the other side, which is you're going to be in the same courtroom, or at least one very similar, with these same people, or at least those very similar, and you could begin to tell your story. Not to mention, if you asked for grace upon the family who's accusing your son, they are likely to follow the law of reciprocity. That's not how you say the word. Reciprocity? No. You know what I mean now. That would have been a very effective strategy. I don't think anybody ever sat down with him. I don't think anybody did that. I think he got grabbed up by a DA. He went in, he read a letter with words that he wouldn't even know what they meant, with legal meaning that he could only recite. And it seemed like a major miss. I don't know why Kane's team did not try to sit down with him, try to explain this. I don't know why I don't know why they're not pursuing temporary insanity. I don't think they need the advice of Chael, but if you are going to go before a jury who 1 hour ago just saw it in favor of the person they liked more, Johnny Depp, who had absolutely no constitutional foundation and won. It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting day. Unanimous decision, Johnny Depp.